This is one of my most ridiculous videos. I think you're going to enjoy it. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like. You're going to want to do that, because if you don't, well, you know, I wouldn't want to be you. Apple is the single largest position in my individual portfolio. One of the reasons it's done so well for me over the years is because of Apple's CEO, Tim Cook. Warren Buffett recently said that Tim Cook is one of the best managers in the world, and I've seen a lot of managers. Warren Buffett also said that Tim Cook understands the world so well that very few CEOs I've met in over 60 years can match. Now, what I want to do in this video is tell you more about Tim Cook and how what he brought to Apple back when he joined in 1998 created a competitive advantage that the company still benefits from today. Back in 2011, when the world learned that Jobs was terminally ill with pancreatic cancer, analysts predicted a rocky road ahead for the company. Few could envisage the company without its inspired, iconic, and occasionally tyrannical leader.
Shut up!
But Jobs himself had no fears. Long before his death, he knew that his chief operating officer, Tim Cook, was the best person to take the company forward. Why did Jobs choose Cook? Because more than anyone, it was Cook who had ensured Apple's phenomenal growth by never allowing the supply of its products to be outstripped by demand, even when demand was stratospheric. Tim Cook joined Apple in 1998. It was a very different company. It was in decline. There was no iMac, iPod, iPhone, or iPad. There was no streaming services. The product range was jaded and unfocused.
We decided just to start over.
Yet less than a year after Cook joined, Apple was reporting profits.
Love it, buddy!
As the visionary Jobs came up with one era-defining product after another, Cook made sure they were always available and in huge numbers. And while most people who interact with him say he's a nice man who cares about people, when it comes down to competing with other businesses, he's a savage. And that's exactly what you want, assuming they're ethical, when you're a shareholder. At least I do. I want a killer. I want somebody that he's got bodies. He's murder. An early Cook ploy was to buy $100 million of holiday season air freight months in advance. This cut out competitors and left them scrambling to ship products during the holiday season.
You put my grandfather out of business. You snooze, you lose, Grandpa.
But he realized very early in his Apple career that the company's supply chain was unwieldy, overcomplex,
Simplicity. In simplicity.
methamphetamine, and unresponsive. So he moved Apple to a just-in-time manufacturing model. It's also referred to as JIT, a process he had overseen in his time at IBM. IBM is pronounced IBM. A lot of people don't know that. You definitely want to tell someone who you respect that tomorrow. Don't back off it, okay? When they say, "You're kidding me," say, "You're not my father.
You are my father.
Cook pared back the number of supply chain vendors from more than 100 to 24, reduced the number of warehouses by half, and established relationships with contract manufacturers. Cook loathes inventory, telling Forbes that he finds it fundamentally evil. Inventory is like dairy products, he has also said. No one wants to buy spoiled milk. Thanks to his JIT supply model, Apple is able to turn over its inventory once every 5 days. Apple's ability to launch, manufacture, and ship millions of iPhones globally like clockwork with virtually no inventory surplus is held to be a miracle of JIT, and this definitely creates a competitive advantage for Apple's business. One article I found from Fortune magazine described Tim Cook's role like this: "Why dwell on the backroom aspects of such a sexy company? Because that seemingly dull stuff is as important to Apple's success as the gorgeous designs and ultra-cool marketing. Forecasting demand, for example, and executing against that forecast are critical in the computer industry, especially when new products quickly cannibalize the old." Think of Cook's contribution like this: there are two basic ways to get great profit margins: charge high prices or reduce costs. Apple does both. The marketing and design drive consumers wild with desire and make them willing to pay a premium. Cook's operational savvy keeps costs under control. Thus, Apple is a cash-generating machine. Cook has called Apple a place that is entrepreneurial in its nature, but with the mother of all balance sheets. That balance sheet is a potent strategic weapon. It allows Cook to lock in suppliers and club competitors. In 2005, Apple introduced a new iPod, the Nano, a music player that was revolutionary because it used far more flash memory than existing products on the market. Cook's team accurately predicted tremendous demand for the Nano and prepaid $1.25 billion to suppliers to effectively corner the market through 2010 on a specific kind of memory. One person quoted in this Fortune article said, "That's the sort of thing they wouldn't have thought of in the days before Tim Cook." Tim Cook seems to just be completely devoted to Apple.
We're looking at every app in detail.
We're watching you.
Like the late Steve Jobs, Tim Cook is known to be obsessive and exacting in his work. He's extremely demanding of the people that work for him.
Right.
One of Tim Cook's former employees said, he'll ask you 10 questions. If you answer them right, he'll ask you 10 more. If you do this for a year, he'll start asking you 9 questions. Get one wrong, and he'll ask you 20 and then 30. I've seen him shred people, says a former executive.
What you sell in that store says something about you. And if you don't want to sell that other thing, you don't sell it.
He asks you the questions he knows you can't answer.
Right?
And he keeps going and going. It isn't funny. And it's not fun. A former Apple executive says he used to have a rehearsed line in his head on the off chance he ended up in an elevator with Steve Jobs. When asked if he had a similar canned speech for Cook, this executive said, no, because he wouldn't talk to you. Some people that went to school with him said, he wasn't someone, he's a very nice person, but he just wasn't like an outgoing, gregarious type of person. That just wasn't his personality.
What you sell in that store says something about you.
But obviously, that's not what you need to be CEO. I think sometimes CEOs of, especially publicly traded companies, are expected to be, these charismatic rock stars.
I eat success for breakfast.
That's not what the job is about.
With skim milk. Out of here, mister!
The last thing I want to point out with Tim Cook, he left a very good job when he was 37 years old, really on a gut feel, because he felt like there was something special at Apple with what Steve Jobs was trying to do. He's been committed to Apple ever since. You can't really put a price on that. On a personal level, one thing that Cook shares with Jobs is a fierce work ethic. He starts work at 4 a.m. every day. He also stays in touch with Apple's customers. I read an extraordinary number of customer emails, he says. It keeps my hand on the pulse of what customers are feeling, thinking, and doing.
Go to some porno site if you want to do that.
Love it, buddy.
Little wonder that during his tenure as CEO, and the company's market value has increased from $348 billion to $1.9 trillion. Now, let's skip ahead to a Financial Times article that came out shortly after Apple hit the $3 trillion mark. We're not going to credit Tim with coming up with the next innovative idea, but what you can credit him with is that you have a platform of hardware that suddenly has services that will be 25% of revenue by 2025. You have an ecosystem that's unparalleled to any, and a supply chain that is unparalleled to any. I have some stats here, and this comes from the Apple 10K. Back 5 years ago, for the year 2016, Apple's services business reported revenues of just over $24 billion. In 2021, just 5 years later, that number is above $68 billion. It is now a very formidable line of business, and it fits perfectly within this idea that as Apple customers, get their first piece of hardware, they love it.
Love it, buddy.
They're loyal to it, they're satisfied. They dive deeper into the ecosystem, they begin using more of the services. And let me tell you what these services are, by the way. They include the company's advertising, which is Apple Search Ads, something I was actually a launch partner with Apple with.
Flex.
Apple Care, the cloud, digital content, and payment for other services. It's very difficult to make things like this work, especially as companies get bigger and there's lots of bureaucracy, which I think is just another reason why Warren Buffett said what he said. The rest really is history. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, I hope you'll subscribe. And once again, this is CMQ Investing. Let's see what other videos are around that you might enjoy. I believe that we made something that's silly, but also serious.